When you hear the sound of the bell, you know you are in the championship rounds with King Amin of Essex. And I'm here today with a very special guest. When I
Thank you.
talk about boxing, sometimes we only think about the fighters. We have no idea and understand how much boxing and how many different avenues. It's like branches of government. It's like, job titles within the music industry. Within boxing, it's so many different occupations spaces you can occupy, rather. And I got a gentleman here today. From Virginia by way of Philly. And I got to talk big on and about Philly because Philly is one of the last fighting cities on the planet. But I do have here today, he goes by That Nerdy Boxing Trainer 1984 on Instagram, but he is Mr. Brian Mabry, my brother. Good
How
evening.
you
Did I
doing, brother?
pronounce that last name correctly?
It's Mabry, but everybody call me everything. But so it's fine.
Mabry.
Yes,
Mabry.
sir.
We want to get it right because a name is there. We pronouncing Balenciaga and all that other shit. We're going to pronounce Mabry.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so just open right to it, man. Why boxing for you? Did it find you or did you find it?
What? So I was the first boy in the family. Um, it's just a bunch of women. So when
Mm.
my grandfather finally got me, he started teaching me how to throw punches in the basement. Um, we ended up moving, I think around age 5 or 6, in the area of Champs, North Philly, lived in 25th and Douglas, and I stumbled into Champs Gym. With the Modell's boxing gloves and the Asics shoes and so on. Then we moved from, it's kind of like everywhere we ever lived was a boxing gym. We went from North Philly, we moved to West Philly. We were 2 blocks from Schuler's. Now I think I spent from age 12 to about age 25 at Schuler's. So on and off, there's other places also, but the majority.
And so I want to get to that right away, man. And that's just a small part, but you said you stumbled into it, and I mentioned it earlier. Philly is one of the last cities where you have enough gyms to stumble into.
Yeah,
You look
definitely.
at a lot of the layers of culture within Philly when it comes to the music. It's a few things that almost every cat from Philly can do.
Fight.
He might could fight, and he might could
Yep.
rap.
Yep,
You
definitely.
you get what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And there's an element of artistry. Philly has a lot of fashion designers, a lot of musicians in other avenues. It's a very Renaissance city. So when you say you stumbled into it, it's not just you. Talk about that kind of culture, how easy it is to stumble into the gym in a place like Philly. Out of necessity, leisure, luxury, tell me.
So mine was more out of, so what's his name? His name is right now. Individual Philly gold medalist. Super slick. Oh man, goddamn, kind of resembled Pernell Whitaker. I'm drawing a blank because we got the camera on.
Meldrick?
Meldrick Taylor. There we go. So I grew up across the street from Meldrick Taylor's wife's house in North Philly. So we used to stay outside, and the kids from the street would bring up boxing gloves, and we would, play. So having Meldrick around, as like a 4 or 5 year old, and then having Bernard Hopkins around as like a 10, 11, 12 year old, it's just something that in Philly you just stay with, and I was pretty good at it, so why not? It wasn't like it was difficult, you know, and I don't have the stature of a football player. I don't have the stature of a basketball player. So boxing was something where individuals were my size, and the individuals that weren't my size, my skill level kind of made us even.
Sure.
Whereas going football, I'm super fast. Well, I'm old now. I was super fast, but me being super fast in high school at 119, the guys just as fast as me at 180, it was no competition,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas though the playing field was a lot more even in boxing.
And so I talked about that on the last episode with my partner, Mr. Bodywork Boxing. This pugilism, boxing is one of the last places to where you could have the best coaches, you could have the wettest water in your bottle,
Mm-hmm.
but it's up to the fighters in the ring. It's the one true measure where it wasn't the point guard, it wasn't the receiver, it was
Definitely.
what happened between those two guys in the ring. And I think that's what, even outside of that, before you get to the ring, there's an element of seeing how far you can push yourself discipline-wise. You know, as far as cutting weight or even sticking with it. You know, the discipline to take a punch and not want to just get all wild. To, you know, there's so many different layers to boxing to where it's such an individual challenge mentally and physically. So boxing seems like a niche for some, and you know, but it's really not. And I'm glad that especially places like Philly, Newark is a little smaller than Philly, but it's the same type of city as far as, you know, the influence of Islam, and we have being in the backdrop of a major city as far as New York, and kind of even the proximity between each other. So but Philly is really one of them places, man, that I really want to talk about. But niches, women's boxing. What do you think? I know it's out there now. Some people that even grew up with it love it to death. They may or may not pay attention to women's boxing. What do you think? Do you think women's boxing is a niche within a niche, or do you think it's its own thing now?
I think women's boxing is definitely its own thing. Um, there's so many good females. I think the disconnect between female boxing and male boxing is the age in which they start.
Mm,
A lot of female boxers in the past came from other sports because they reached the apex of that sport. You know, Division 1 female softball player can't play anything but college softball. You know, she can't play anything but college basketball. You know, she goes to WNBA, the pay isn't worth it for a lot of women. But with boxing, they come in later, and they can, based off the athleticism, they can still, have a successful career. But I think now, especially with people like Clarissa Shields, they're making it the norm. I trained two fantastic little girls. One of them, Maya Gordon, I think she does. I don't know her exact ranking, but she's ranked in the top 10. I have another little girl named Taylor Hill. She only has 2 fights, but she's undefeated, and I mean, it's wonderful. So my thought process was growing up as a boxer, seeing that male boxers were always better had nothing to do with sexuality. It was based on the fact that female boxers started later.
mm-hmm.
So, like, we're out here in Lubbock, Texas now, and you have the families that have trained their girls like boys. What I mean by that is they're starting them at 4 or 5 years old. So now these girls are just as good as any boy, based on the window when they started. They're not coming into the game later trying to adapt to it. This is all they do. So no,
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. Only thing I don't like about it is over sexualized. You
Mm.
know, being a father of 2 girls and training. I think I might train me and my other guys. We might train about 5 females. Um, like, why does my female fighter in the future, not amateurs, has to get? Why do they have to get weighed in lingerie or a bikini? Why are women that are, um, let's say, like, stereotypically attractive, why do they make more? So you could take a Hispanic woman, and this has nothing to do with race, but
Yeah.
you could take a Hispanic woman that has long, flowing, beautiful hair, or a Caucasian female from Europe with long blonde hair, and she's going to make more money than Clarissa Shields, who's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, because she isn't the stereotypical attractive female. I think that's one of my major issues. Is that
So no, and
okay? You
that's
good?
important to address, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I asked a question. I said misogyny within boxing. You know, is it fairly obvious or is it obviously fair?
Definitely. Remember,
You know what I
remember
mean?
Mia St. John. She's the fight. She's pulling every Alpha De La Hoya card. Beautiful woman. Then what's the other one? Ann Wolf. Not stereotypical. And when you think of an attractive woman based
Sure.
off of cultural norms, but she was a killer.
Yeah.
That probably didn't make half the money. I mean, Mia St. John is being thrown waitresses and Hooters girls
Hmm.
to TKO, and Ann Wolf is really knocking out competition. But it's all based on, like I said, over sexualizing. the guys coming to see these females fight aren't coming to truly see females fight. They're coming to see females. And the fighting is like a byproduct of attractive females.
I think there's one part that it will have to balance itself at in your proximity to it. I'm sure you'll agree. And there's a big heavyweight, I'm tripping. Bantamweight division fight, women's boxing this weekend between kind of the prototype for what you're describing in Ebony Bridges, the blonde bombshell, as she described it, versus Shannon O'Connell. And that's kind of dichotomy. The funny thing is you got two blonde hair, blue-eyed women, but they're absolutely opposition as far as what their perspective in an approach to boxing, what the perspective is in approach to seriousness. And I think like this is the perfect fight. This is Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader, because if Ebony Bridges wins, it doesn't mean that this window for misogyny and sexuality wins, but what it does is, like all things, it begins to massage an idea of, okay, so that's a part of the game, But is it a part of the game? Because, we don't see Amanda Serrano doing those things. We certainly don't see Katie Taylor doing those things. We don't see Savannah Marshall doing those things, and we saw Michaela Mayer fight a lot to try not to be presented as that way, So I think that, in a lot of ways, people that have voices, at every level can empower the women and remind them, like, yeah, maybe a couple dudes out there that ain't got no restraint, and they literally want to watch what Eddie Hearn's reaction is at the weigh-in. They literally want to see. I'm just being real. I came across a fighter, Yokasta Valle, and I'm a women's boxing savant, if I may say myself. But a lot of what I saw was after the fact, a particular cheeky, pun intended picture of her. You could do that too, but when you get in that ring, ultimately, you got to do what you got to do. So I'm also very curious to see how that fight between Shannon O'Connell and Ebony Bridges turns out, man. You got a dog in that one?
No, actually, like I said, as of right now, when it comes to female boxing, I personally don't want to hear about anything until Clarissa Shields gets her just due. Like I said, she's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. There hasn't been another male. There hasn't been another female. Like, when she starts headlining events and being the poster child for women's boxing, I'll actually pay attention to women's boxing. I don't want to see like I said, they can look like whatever they want to look like. They could be attractive. They could be unattractive. But that's not why I'm watching the sport. Was it Serrano and Katie Taylor? That was a war.
Yeah. I was there. I was in the building, brother. My adrenaline was like, woo-hoo.
And probably I ended up watching that. We were on the way back from the Nationals in Cleveland, and it was in the car on the way back. But that was a fight where, when the punches were thrown, it didn't matter what they looked like. But it wasn't until they started fighting that people considered them fighters.
Sure.
So like I said, in my mindset, when you take the best female fighter and you're not giving her roses because she isn't as polished, she isn't as prissy, I'm not going to support, that part of the sport. My goal is to take my little girls that I train and have them be, amazing fighters and amazing people, no matter what they look like. No matter, my daughter is, my wife is Egyptian, so my daughter will be half Egyptian. She's probably, if she's anywhere as good as my son, she's probably guaranteed to be an Olympic.
Yeah.
Right? Because all you gotta do is say, hey, she's Egyptian, she's on the team, international, and she's probably gonna be gorgeous. So then I gotta deal with the fact that, are they respecting respecting her as an athlete, or are they looking at her because she has green eyes and long hair and almond colored skin? So, and two of these women are looked at as athletes, and I don't have to look at the weigh-in. It's like female rap music. Everything in a female rap song is pussy this, fuck this, suck this, lick this, eat this, do this. I don't want to hear it. It's not that I don't believe that women are talented rappers. I believe that the individuals that are promoting and making money off these females could care less about their ability to rap. I think it's the exact same thing in female boxing.
And to that point, I want to shout out two very special fighters, Ramla Ali. She's a supermodel for Vogue, but she's also
Okay.
6-0 undefeated from the UK by way of
Nice.
Somalia. You know what I mean?
Okay.
London girl. She's also a respectable, married, chaste woman. You know what I'm saying? And also shout out to Shadeja Green. She's of the ilk that you mentioned earlier, former college basketball player, Patterson, New Jersey, stand up. But this
Gotcha.
woman is dropping bodies at 168. She called out Clarissa Shields, coincidentally.
Okay.
I refer to her as the 50 Cent of boxing. She's trying to get on how to rob a boxer.
Gotcha.
So
she's taking on all competition.
And she's a proud member of the LGBTQ. She's married. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
again, she's not going to get those opportunities that Ramla might get. But if we can bridge the gap between both of those types of fighters and make it all about the boxing, as much as the backstory that I can mention, I'm still trying to bridge the gap and make it about the boxing.
It has to be. Like my girls that I train, not that they're not allowed to, but we don't fight in pink. You know, we don't. When you come to an event, when they come to an event with my boys, you can't tell a difference.
Yeah.
My little girl Maya, if you don't catch her face, you just see her from the back and see the way she punches and moves and walks. She's a hey, come here, Maya. Here she goes. This is. I got a house full of kids for this tournament.
Yeah,
this is my girl right here.
How you doing,
Maya.
champ?
Hi. Like I said, one of the top girls in the country right now.
Yeah.
She goes to an event in a sweatsuit and a jersey and trunks like everybody else. She's not a female at that time. She's a boxer competing in the female bracket.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the future, because the women's boxing, the future is still bright on that. I want to get you pick your brain on a couple of fighters. You know, the landscape is wide, so you can go with any division, any fighters you see either emerging as a potential prospect contender, or you know, somebody we need to watch. So you tell me who you got your eyes on. We know everybody's big on, Tank Davis and Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson, the three young guys, if you will. Give me your opinion on anybody you like out there that really inspires you, that you even, maybe use as a tool in what you're doing with your work.
So my son he's not a up and coming guy, but so my son was probably 110% modeled on Rasheem Warren.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in amateurs, Rasheem Warren, he was just like amazing. No one wanted to deal with him. He's a 3-time Olympian. He just dominated, I want to say, the 112 division at the time. So he's amazing. Like I said, he's probably towards the end of his career, but he's not as well known as most people.
Sure.
But for up and coming, I would say Boots. Boots is great. Like Boots, the things that he does to people that other people struggle with, and the manner he does it in is just insane. I mean, his brother's down here with us now.
Now give us a thing or two, because when people hear that, a lot of people become hipsters. You know, sometimes it is with boxing. People want to get on hipsters on something and then they get off. For example, and we've heard the comparisons, but we've also heard Boots say, compare me because I want to kind of take that name. But we've seen that with Bud Crawford. People wanted to, Bud Crawford. And they love you until they don't love you no more. They love you until people don't agree or don't like the decision you made. And now everybody loved Boots Ennis. And I would know with Crawford, for me, it was kind of the ability to switch up. I thought he turned a little bit more offensive and a little bit more vindictive when he was southpaw, a little bit more calculated when he was conventional. And, that was a thing for me. What is it about Boots that you can tell people like, don't expect no knockout from him, but this is what I want you to pay attention to?
In my opinion, he's a better Crawford. His switch is smoother. Crawford struggles. It's a part of it's him, but he struggles early rounds in most of his fights.
Yeah.
Right. With with whoever, from Gamboa to anybody. Gamboa was much smaller. Uh, Guy from Philly, Hank Lundy. Like these guys all gave him a tough time, maybe the first 3 or 4 rounds. But Boots controls the fight from the very start to the very end. I mean, his switching is smoother. His punches are a lot sharper. He doesn't get hit with a lot. He hasn't. I haven't seen him, get hurt. We've seen Crawford get hurt, and there's nothing wrong. That's all part of boxing. But I'm just saying, to me, he's if you took Crawford and wanted to improve Crawford,
Mm-hmm.
like let's say you were building something, you wanted to build it better. Like they waited for the patent to run out on Crawford, and then Boots emerges, and everything that's good with Crawford, they kept, and everything that Crawford is, will struggle with, they improved upon. So to me, he's just a better Crawford. Switch hitter, he's powerful, he's fast, he's sharp, well spoken, everything.
And he's so young,
So
and
young.
he's already ready for Virgil Ortiz. That Virgil
Yeah.
Ortiz kind of did the merengue around that one and sidestepped it. But
who wants to fight him? I mean, I wouldn't. I don't even blame. I don't blame him. I'm not one of those guys that needs to see everybody fight. I understand. This is a business.
yeah,
To me, amateur boxing, being down here in Lubbock, and next we go to Detroit. This is where the top fighters in the country actually are. These kids can't pick who they fight. The number 15 guy will draw number 1 guy. They don't have 6 months to prepare for him. You just need to fight. But in the pros, it's about making money.
yeah.
So I understand people ducking people. And to me, Boots is somebody to duck. Because when that O goes, those O's also start to disappear on those checks. So these people need to feed their family. So trying to please the boxing audience, and risking millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in future purses, I totally understand.
So let's talk about that. Let's go into a little bit of a fight week preview, because we got Terrence Crawford in action this weekend against an opponent that people don't agree with, but just because I can give people a little bit of game, whether they know or not. David Avanesian, if you saw what's this guy, Josh Kelly versus Troy Williamson. This was in the UK. This was over on Friday, last Friday. He battered and embarrassed Troy Williamson, and I say that respectfully. Troy Williamson got that same flag I got in the back, but still, I seen what happened. I can't deny it. And the only loss that Josh Kelly has is to who? David Avanesian. David Avanesian also clipped a long in the tooth Shane Mosley. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Joe Jackson Jr., as I call him. He kind of got that Joe Jackson, Jermaine Jackson look with him. But I and jokingly I say that just to say there's a lot that people can say jokingly about this matchup, but do you see this one going anyway, surprisingly, or are you just kind of like, man, you got bigger fish to fry with the Nationals down there?
No, absolutely. So I think it's a good fight that's going to test them, but I don't think it's at all dangerous. Like I said, these pros at this level are experts on making money. That's why it's almost impossible. I work for the State Department. A lot of my officers, they do this online betting, right? And they come in, Sunday or Monday morning, and they're like so happy about the money they made over the weekend. So I don't know other sports. All I know is boxing. So I'm like, well, tell me the odds on this fight and that fight. The boxing odds are so hard to make money on because the fights are almost like statistically guaranteed to turn out a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. So we can sit here and we can try to give hope. And you always got that puncher's chance, always. But statistically speaking, based off of previous outcomes, we know who's going to win. And it's the outlier fights like the Spence and the Crawford fights that are actually the dangerous fights, both of them. But this fight, in my opinion, wouldn't have been made if he couldn't win. Because his promoters are not going to put him in a position to make them less money, in my opinion.
like you said, if that O on that record go, it's usually an O off that check. So
Exactly.
all invested parties are not willing to risk that.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about a fighter that, maybe he had one of them O's dropped off and maybe they deducted him worse than the feds, right? Teofimo Lopez. He's in there against
Yeah.
Sandor Martin out of Spain. Sandor Martin got a win over. His tooth ain't that long, but he might need some dentures, Mikey Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
And Sandor's a kind of tricky southpaw fighter. Got that European style, not high guard, but kind of in and out punchy. Gonna be looking to counter.
We're just talking about this fight. Oh shit! I'm sorry.
No, you
Hello.
good.
My
What
bad.
What do you think about this one?
So once again, you got a situation where they're trying to get in terms of my coach is talking about the fight. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Los. He's in the room. That's talking about this fight. So in my opinion, like I said, you got individuals who they have an individual on their record with Mike Garcia, like you said, over the hill. They're trying to get Teofimo back to his place at the top because he defeated Lomachenko, right? But he can't make the money from defeating Lomachenko because he got defeated by what's the guy's name? Kambosos.
Mm-hmm.
So until they can get him back to that level to justify him being paid these amounts, once again, this is just an easy guy that he's probably gonna walk through. I mean, a slight bit of struggle to get the people back on the side. That's just how Kambosos fight. Guy's gonna come forward. He's gonna be there for Kambosos to hit, and he's gonna take a beating, but eventually he's probably gonna go down. And then you put Kambosos back at the mid level. Hopefully, try to get a rematch with Lomachenko, which I think is a waste of time. But it's money. But like I said, you can't put Teofimo in there with anybody right now until he proves to the people that it's worth it. Kind of like a Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia can promise that he's going to fight anybody, but he'll, soon as the fight come up, it's an issue. His mental health, an injury, and so on. Until they really fight people, then they're and be put back on this platform to really be worth the fight. It's just semantics. There you go, right there, Los. You asked about Teofimo fight. This is my one of my fellow coaches, Carlos Gordon.
What's going on, Coach? How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Give me a little bit of science. We got some time left. I'm doing a little bit of fight week preview, and I want to get a little bit of your take on this Lopez versus Sandor Martin, because I got an opinion that Teofimo is his own worst enemy. And one thing he said, and I don't mean to pick at him or poke holes at him, but he said something just recently at the presser. He goes, "This ain't the boxing business. This is the entertainment business." And even before then, he started talking about wanting Josh Taylor, and Josh Taylor is in a maybe February fight with Jack Catterall because Jack Catterall need his get back because he got robbed. So I'm just wondering, like, I know the skills that Teofimo possess, but I don't mean to be trying to like mystical, but I see him doing something weird where he's at more risk than what's necessary. But give me your take, man.
I think he's in it to he's setting himself up to be disappointed again by getting ahead of himself. Martin disappointed somebody in his last fight, right? We all got a lot of respect for Mike. Mikey might not have been the best Mikey. Still Mike. He dominated Mike. So with Teofimo, he may be trying to act like he's not making the same mistake he made against Kambosos. Sounds like he's about to. I think he thinks that Martin might just lay down. That's not going to happen. Martin trying to get paid too. So the way I see it for Teofimo is he going to have to make his bones and make them fast. So he might be predicting, he'll set something up and see if he can clip him early. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know, everything about Martin, but Teofimo got the skill set to do a lot of things. So it's a lot of things he can take Martin through. But if Teofimo thinks he's not going to be in a fight, he's sadly mistaken.
See, and I love that opinion on it, Coach. And one thing, because I don't like to sound like I'm, making too many little marks against a particular fighter, but I just try to observe some of those things beyond the skills. And we've seen where Teo has had some little slippages and focus, a little things. But one thing we know about Top Rank, and I refer to as the Top Rank diet. If he looked any way shaky against Martin, even with a win, they'll be ready to feed him to whoever, like the winner of Barbosa and Pedraza, who they got kind of set up, waiting in the wings or whatever they want to do at 140 over there. And while you're there, Coach, I want you to give me some game right quick. What do you think about Top Rank's prospect, like the Jahi Tuckers and the Bruce Carringtons and the Xander Zayas and Keyshawn Davis? Tell me what you think about those guys.
Out of all three of them, I think Shushu is set up to be the most successful out of the bunch. Only because the kid good for the sport. He gonna box well. He's a good character, good personality. But he's strong about the boxing and the banging. He got a good balance. I know in his last one, he probably would have wanted to put more fireworks out. It's fine. He got to cut his teeth in his first few to figure out, how he gonna get his finishes. But in a more panoramic view, Xander, I don't know. But it's gonna take for Xander to get touched to see what he is. Xander is something sharp. You know what I mean? Keyshawn is the personality of everybody. Keyshawn got a good grip on keeping things entertaining. But I think Keyshawn might be getting stuck in trying to model himself after somebody who's already gained a lot of success.
Keyshawn is a celebrity.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
You don't got to reinvent the wheel. But even some of the mannerisms and things like that, he'd give me a little Kobe to MJ. You know what I mean? It's a lot of Bud in Keyshawn. I want Keyshawn to be Keyshawn.
Yeah.
But what Keyshawn has a great grip on, Bud doesn't. So he's putting things together the way he needs to. The pairing is good. But I really like Shushu's humility. You know what I mean? He give me the same type of feel that Tank give me. I like, a lot of people think a lot of things about Tank, but I've always maintained that Tank's humility is intact.
Sure.
He never said nothing wild. He never said he would go up and fight Errol Spence and starch him or nothing like that. He keeps things where they should be. I think the same thing about Bruce. Bruce got the confidence he's supposed to have. It's appropriate. But Xander, truthfully, for me, I think he's the guy that they move and they put him in front of whoever, whenever, and he gonna be fine because he can rely on real skill. You know what I mean? And, it remains to be seen who got the chin, you know what I mean, out of everybody. So I like how they moving Keyshawn. They keeping him busy. They keeping Bruce busy. I know Xander, he had the unfortunate event getting sick before his last one. Yeah. Came back and looked great. You know what I mean? So time off for Xander ain't no problem. He gonna stick around and, he's for the sport. And coming from the island, it don't get no better than Puerto Rico having good boxers. You know what I mean?
Marketable too.
Yeah, and I hate to bring my man up. Speaking of Shushu and Brooklyn and Puerto Rico, my man Edgar Berlanga questionable.
Thank you.
Nobody say.
Thank you.
They stepped him up. He getting stepped on. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really want to hear no more about the Nas Park Mike Tyson from Brooklyn. I ain't trying to hear none of that. You know what I'm saying? He's a lot of pump, and that's what's wrong with boxing. You know what I'm saying? It's appropriate to step him up, but don't pump him before you step him up. You got everybody thinking this is the new biggest knockout guy in the world. You was feeding them all kinds of hinds. You know what I'm saying? So we know better now. My man getting lumped up. You could go back and watch him in the amateurs. My man was getting rolled around there. It dropped in the amateurs.
And one thing that might have been part of his undoing, and they could blame whatever they want, but when that footage got out of him getting roughed up by Erickson Lubin, it was like, you know what I'm saying? And again, it's a part of the game, but that should have let him know and his team know, maybe you don't want to make him ready for Madison Square Garden in front of You know what I'm saying? All the Puerto Ricans that could travel from Philly, all the Puerto Ricans that's coming from Connecticut, coming from Newark, coming from, you know what I'm saying? And they putting a lot of pressure on him. Xander can carry that burden, but
For
maybe
sure.
not so much Edgar, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree, man. And then you throw guys who are world-renowned behind him, like Fat Joe and stuff like that. And then when he doesn't perform, it's deflating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it takes away from the allure of a guy who you've made to seem like, you know, when you put him in the mecca of boxing, his shows, his MSG, you know, it hurts him. It hurts his brand.
Well, Coach Carlos, I want to thank you. Coach Brian, we're going to get up out of here. I'm running real short on time.
My Coach Mac, there you go.
Solid
Yo,
questions,
my brother.
too, brother. Solid questions.
Listen, I got to get all of y'all on there. I don't want this thing to cut off, man. We got about like 30 seconds, man, but just shout y'all information real quick, man.
Nerdy Boxing out of Fredericksburg, Virginia. The most, as of today, the most successful gym in Virginia. We started out on a soccer field and took 4 kids to nationals that ranked up. One of them with a gold medal, one of them with a silver. So
from a soccer field to a classroom.
From a classroom to our